Hello and welcome to On The Prowl. I'm your host, Savannah Shepard, and with me today is the coach of the Huntville Tigers, Coach Nick Salter-Formaggio. Thanks for joining us this week, Coach.
Thank you, Savannah.
Coming up on today's show, Coach Sal will take a look back at last week's game against the Thibodeau Tigers, and we'll get Coach to look ahead to this Friday's first playoff game against the Covington Lions. And finally, in today's show, we'll take a look back at Huntville's final home volleyball game. Both Huntville and Thibodeau are equally matched with at least one loss. Do you think this motivated Huntville into not stepping down throughout the game?
Yeah, I think so, baby. I mean, it was a lot of things that went into it. One, senior night, and you want to play well. Your final game at Huntville as a senior, so you want to play well on that night, and our seniors played very, very well. Two, we were battling for playoff position, so we knew that a win over Thibodeau would give us a lot of points. It would get us into that top 8 seed, which is very important because if the brackets hold true, you play, 2 home games right off the bat. So that was important. And then finally, you didn't want to slip in a district. Over the last 2 years, the only district loss we've had has been to Destrehan. And, we wanted to kind of stay on their heels. Hopefully one day we can catch them. We can be the district champion. But, you never want to slip behind people you're beating. But, hats off to Destrehan for being the district champion. But also, it was important for us to stay right there with them. And that win over Thibodeau allowed us to do that.
With last week being the last regular game of the season, do you think Huntville has improved on everything they needed to cover?
Yeah, I think we've gotten better in every aspect of our game, especially the fact that in football you always need to have that next guy up kid working really, really hard because of injuries. And we've had some significant injuries the last couple of weeks. Obviously, earlier in the season, midway through, we lost Waylon LeBlanc to a broken collarbone. And then 2 weeks ago, we lose Michael Gray to a broken collarbone. But that's allowed guys like Jaquan Jackson to step up and get a lot more playing time. And he's done a very good job. And Brandon Johnson has stepped in and has done a very good job as well. And then Friday night, we lose Devontae Clark early in the game. And, kind of the workload fell on Anthony and Cade Miguez. And we were also able to get some of our younger backs in the game to help us run the football a little bit. So from a depth perspective, I think we've gotten better. I think offensively and defensively we've gotten better. We've even gotten better in the kicking game in spite of the fact that we had a kickoff returned against us. We've gotten better in the kicking game. Dalton Melanson has stepped on and done a wonderful job since Thomas Rasco got hurt and we lost him for the year. So, I have to be pleased with where we are as a football team right now, but it's a new week. It's really kind of a new year. The playoffs, everybody starts 0-0. And we just want to keep playing Huntville football, and I think if we do, we'll have a nice run.
Looking back on your regular season, do you think it was a successful one?
Well, we got one more win this year than we did last year, so that's successful. And I think that the games we needed to win, we fell a little short in, to be honest with you. We felt like, this might be a year we could match Destrehan. That didn't happen. We felt like we didn't play very well against Riverside. That didn't happen. But both those teams are number 1 seeds in the state playoffs. Conversely, the next week against St. Thomas More, the middle of the year where, we were kind of in that same boat we were in last year, our kids found a way. And it really showed me at that time that our program has taken another step forward. And we've played very, very good football since the second half of the Destrehan game. So when you evaluate your on-the-field performance, we've played a lot of good quarters of football. We've had a lot of camaraderie in our locker room. Our coaches are really working hard. They're working hard with them, within the staff and within the locker room with our players. So there's a lot of positives going on. So I definitely think, evaluating it, is this an A+ season? No, but it's better than it was last year. So we're moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Coach. Let's take a look at the first half highlights.
These are defensive seniors who are not captains, but they were captains for that night. And all 3 of those guys have done a great job for us. Early in the game, Thibodeau's up 7-0 after they return the opening kickoff. And, we kind of get it going early in the game right there with Anthony. Our run game has been very, very good for us. And as I say that, we throw a nice ball to Jamel Bird, who's had a great year for us as well. But we have a lot of dynamic weapons on offense, and we just want to keep those guys going. We wound up not scoring on that drive. And Thibodeau goes down and takes a long drive against us. And they're up 13-0 in the second quarter. And then we kind of got going a little bit. I think we came out and we were not necessarily shell-shocked, but we were just pressing. Everything was like a sense of urgency that we couldn't get over. And once we relaxed, things kind of got better for us, obviously, and we started playing football the way we're capable of playing football. Anthony on another nice run, and then Austin gets in on a quarterback sneak for us, and it was a nice play there. We get the ball right back to our defense, and they really started playing well at this particular time. They pursuing the football well, making tackles for losses. There's Rashad Domino, who's been a really good player for us after coming back from an injured ankle. Trayvon Anna, who's been an excellent player for us the entire year, gets an interception down there, gives us a real short field, get our offense back on the field, and Anthony breaks counter for us right up the middle of the field. And, we go in. We missed the extra point, so now it's tied at 13. But we just felt like at that point momentum had shifted to us, and then we hit Anthony on power, and his speed does the rest. And he's one of the best I've ever been around, and had a great night that night. Set a school record for yards rushing with 355 yards. Here he comes right back on a toss play and takes off down the field. And again, we just kind of chewing up yardage, and we go into halftime tied at 20, but really felt good about where we were at that point in the game.
How was losing your power running back, Devontae Clark, a deficit to your team early in the game?
Well, it's like, it was a very similar scenario to when Anthony got hurt against Destrehan in the first half, where it just kind of shocked us a little bit. We felt like we'd lost half of our offense when we lost him. But we learned from what had happened 6 weeks ago, and I think we just kind of adjusted what we were doing to getting the ball to Cade. Let Cade be kind of that inside power run guy, and then use Anthony as we've used him all year long. The one thing it did do was it took Anthony out of the receiving aspect of the game. He didn't have any catches Friday night, but he had 29 carries. So he became more of a runner than he was receiver on Friday night, but we adjusted to it fairly well.
By the end of the first half, you were tied up 20-20. What did you tell your team to rally in the second half?
Well, to be honest with you, I got him in at halftime, and I told him, stop pressing. This is supposed to be fun. Friday nights, you work all week long, and this is week 10. So those guys, especially those seniors, had worked 4 years to get to this moment. And stop pressing. Just go have fun. Enjoy it. Enjoy the big crowd. I mean, one of the great things about playing at Hornville is how large our crowds are, how big our student section is, and how loud our band is. I mean, all those things go into having a fun time on Friday night. And I just told them, relax, have fun, enjoy the game. You're the more talented team. It's going to work out for you. But if you keep pressing, you're going to miss tackles. We're going to turn the ball over. We're going to miss assignments. We're going to miss blocks. And then you're going to be in a tight ball game. And I think once they realized that we were relaxed on the sidelines as coaches, they just kind of exhaled a little bit and went out and played a really fine second half.
Let's take a look at the second half highlights.
And we come right out. We get the opening kickoff. And we get Anthony rolling again. He makes a nice cut, kind of slips coming out of the break, and then does a little too much dancing. Sometimes he doesn't have to dance as much as he does. He could just keep running. We got a face mask at the end, and then Dalton Malonsaw comes in, kicks a 35-yard field goal. I don't even think he knew he made it. He was in a little bit of shock, but it went through, and nice job by David Vial on the snap and Max Farrell on the hold, and we were able to make a nice play on the field goal, and then we come right back, and Hunter LeBlanc gets a pick six, which I was glad for him. He's a very good athlete that's done a very good job in our secondary for us this year. Only a junior. He's going to be a good player for us. And then, again, they make a mistake and kick it to Anthony. And, when you kick the ball off to him with all those moves, he's going to make you pay. And, again, he sets us up in really good field position. And we get a personal foul at the end of it, which gets us a little closer to the goal line. And then Anthony takes off and does the rest, breaks right out of there for another touchdown, and gives us that 10-point lead. And we just kind of built on it from there. Our defense took over. Even though we gave up 27 points, we had a kickoff return for a touchdown. We had a tip ball that went for a touchdown. But defensively, we started really playing well, towards the latter part of the second half. And, we got a bunch of guys in there swarming to the ball. William Brown, who's just been an excellent football player for us all year long, makes a very nice tackle on a very fine football player for Thibodeau. And we get a ball thrown across the middle, which is always problems. And Elgin Collins comes in and makes a an interception and a very nice return off the interception. And again, puts us in really good position offensively. And we go right back to work. We get the ball to Anthony. Nice block on the edge by Cade Miguez. And Anthony's able to coast in and then put us up kind of significantly. We come back playing defense one more time, and there's William Brown again with another tackle for loss. And again, there's a guy who was as skinny as a pencil when I got here 3 years ago and has really developed into a very, very good football player for us. And as has Cameron Cabral, who comes in and gets a nice sack on the quarterback late in the game. And Cameron's another guy who's just been a benefit in our program through our weight room and has become an excellent football player for us. And now we're at the end of the game. We got a bunch of our pups in again, and they're doing a nice job, and we get a big victory, get us to where we need to be in the state playoffs.
At the opening of the third quarter, Dalton Molosov broke the 20-20 tie. Do you think this boosted Hahnville's morale?
Yeah, and especially kicking a field goal. We hadn't kicked one all year long, and we have some good kickers. We just really hadn't been in a position to kick it. And then it was funny, Dalton came off. We called it at the very last second, and Dalton came off, and he said, "Man, Coach, that's the way to do it. I didn't have time to get nervous." But he drilled a 35-yarder off the left hash mark. That was a heck of a kick.
What turning point did you have to make in the third quarter to keep ahead of Thibodeau?
We just had to get them off the field, to be honest with you. We'd given up 2 long plays. We opened the game with a kickoff return, and then we go up by 10 points, and we get a tip ball that they catch. We really made a very nice play on it. We just tipped it up in the air, and the receiver caught it, and he was behind the safety that had made the play and ran it in. And I just think our guys knew that if we continued to play like we were playing, some of those crazy bounces of the ball were going to start going our way, and that's really what happened.
Thanks, Coach. Coming up next, we'll get Coach to look ahead to this week's game against the Covington Lions. The Lady Tigers face the Bonneville Bruins. We have Katie Funk with the story up next.
The Hahnville Lady Tigers came out with a big win in the first round of the playoffs against the Bonneville Bruins.
We had a really big one tonight, and it was just an amazing feeling because we haven't been able to get past the first round of playoffs in 10 years, which we're really proud of. And although it was a quick game, it was like dear to our hearts because we were able to get past that goal. And we're just ready to play on Saturday, and that was kind of like warming up, and we were able to keep a quick offense going.
Just coming out here, we've always had that goal to get past first round since freshman year, day one. And to come out here and be able to do it, it's really satisfying, and to see everything come together that we've worked for, it's just amazing.
Feel awesome. It feels really good. We've been working really hard to get back to this point, and to have made it with this group of seniors, it feels super good.
Even with the win, it was an emotional night for the Lady Tigers' last regular season home game.
It's kind of sad. This is our home. We've been in here every day, every summer, pretty much every day, beginning in August to December, working. And to say goodbye to it, it's really hard, but it's really good that we get to say goodbye on a good note. So.
Unfortunately, the Lady Tigers weren't able to pull out the win in the second round, falling to the Chappelle Chipmunks in hard-fought 4-set match. Reporting for On The Prowl, I'm Katie Funk.
Thanks, Katie, for that report. Coach, do you think playing against Thibodeau was a good move to get ready for the playoffs?
Yeah, they're a really good football team. In our district, there are a lot of really good football teams. Thibodeau, Destrehan, East St. John. We've had every one of the teams in our district qualify for the playoffs except for one, which shows you the depth of our football district. But, down the stretch, when you're looking at scores, against teams that you have played that either beat you or you beat them, you kind of want to see where you fall and where you rank. And we knew Thibodeau was a top 16 seed. So going into that game, we felt like beating Thibodeau would be like beating a playoff opponent just in week 10. And that is the way it played out for us. So we had a lot of confidence going into the game, and we have a lot of confidence coming out of the game. We've had 2 good days of practice so far. So hopefully all those things, beating Thibodeau in week 10, which is a very quality opponent with some very fine athletes, well coached, traditional Louisiana powerhouse in football, having good practices this week, having the momentum going forward, gets us a win this week, Friday night, because, there's no guarantee other than this Friday night. We have to win to keep going.
Do you think you still have to make major preparations for the playoffs?
You always do. There's so many things, Savannah, that go into being successful in the state playoffs. First and foremost is belief in yourself. because you can't really do anything about anybody else. You can't do anything about your opponent except prepare for them. So, when you look at the bracket, the big thing is to take care of Hahnville first and focus on that one game at a time. And again, I know when the bracket came out, everybody in St. Charles Parish automatically looked at Hahnville and Destrehan in the same part of the bracket. So they're hoping that happens. But from a coaching standpoint and being a head coach at Hahnville, and from our players and being players at Hahnville, it's about taking care of business this Friday night. Don't look forward. Don't look back. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't talk about the what-if scenarios. Just focus on every day of practice. And if you can do that, and again, I've always said this, the hardest part about winning a state championship in football, with all due respect to all the other sports, is it's 5 more weeks of practice. If you get to the state championship game, you have to practice for 5 more weeks. And you go through a Thanksgiving break where a lot of your friends are going on vacation, the weather gets cold, you come back to school, it's exam time after Thanksgiving. So there's all these other elements that are going on outside of football that you have to be able to deal with. So, my message to those guys is focus on one day at a time, focus on Hahnville. That's all we can control is Hahnville, and see where we are at the end of Friday night.
How are you going to prepare for your first round of playoffs against Covington?
Well, Covington is a traditional, a very storied Louisiana program. Matter of fact, the head coach there is the grandson of the head coach who the stadium's named after, Jack Salter, a longtime legend, Louisiana high school coach, Hall of Famer. So, we're playing a traditional powerhouse. So it's going to be a traditional powerhouse in Hahnville versus a traditional powerhouse in Covington. From a player's standpoint, they have an outstanding running back named Devin Brumfield, who, as a freshman, was offered by Mississippi State a college football scholarship, and he's accumulated over 4,000 yards in the 3 years he's been there. He's only a junior. Defensively, it's a typical Covington football team. They're very strong. They're very physical inside. They have some stout linebackers. So, the preparation for us is, again, we know what's coming our way. We know how good Brumfield is. We know how good they are defensively. We know how well coached they are, and we know what kind of program they're coming from. But again, we can't do anything about that. The only thing we can do is talk about Hahnville. Well, we have a couple of great running backs. We have an outstanding quarterback. Our offensive line is strong and physical. Defensively, we're playing a little bit better than we were in the beginning of the year. So if we can keep getting ourselves better, then, it gets down to Friday night of executing your game plan. Can we do what we did the previous 6.5 weeks, from the second half of that Destrehan game? Can we duplicate that again Friday night? Because if we can, then, we should score more than 40 points, because we've scored more than 40 points in 7 of our 10 games. We'll probably give up our defensive average of about 20 points a game. So if we win 41-20, I'll be happy. And that's what we have to talk about. Just talk about what we're doing at Hahnville and keep working on that aspect of it.
Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Thank you, sweetie.
And that will do it for this week's edition of Hahnville On The Prowl. For updates and news on Press Play Productions, check out our website at presstoplay.tv. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Press to Play. I'm your host, Savannah Shepard, and thanks for watching.